Hello everyone! An action in Hanami is probably the biggest and the most feature-rich building block. In this episode I want to have some fun with them by trying out different parts and show you some features you will need to build complete web applications. Let's start with a basic action. By default, actions use corresponding defined views and HTML templates. But for simplicity, in this example, I will skip views by defining the handle method and overriding the status and the body inline. When I will open the root URL, you should see the updated welcome message in the browser now. This is pretty neat, but to show more interesting stuff, I need a patch action defined. I will copy it over to another action file named subscribe. Then I'm going to register my new action in the router as an endpoint responding to patch HTTP method. Now let's extend this beauty. The first thing I want to show is how we can modify response headers in hanami-actions. Similar to the body, I can update response headers easily because headers are stored as the plain hash in the request object. I will add custom header to the existing header list and then show it in the response. When I send the patch request under the URL subscribe.me@hanamimastery.com, you will see a new header being returned. That's cool. But now, when headers are covered, let's have some fun with parameters. In my action, I can easily access all parameters passed to it too. Let me quickly add params to the response body for an easier overview. I will change the body string to the heredoc syntax to easier maintain multi-line string definition and add the params hash at the bottom. I can see here the email read from URL parameter, and if I will add something to the query, it will be visible here too. That's awesome. So let's try to add the JSON body parameters to the request and see what happens. Surprisingly, nothing. There are no additional parameters parsed from the request body. The reason is that by default, all the input incoming to the action is just text. To inform your application on how to tackle JSON input, you need to set up a JSON body parser. I will do it in the config.ru file. Here I need to require Hanami middleware body parser and set it to the JSON. After restarting the server, your extra parameters should be visible now. Having access to the parameters is great, but there might be a chance you would like to validate the input parameters incoming to your endpoints. Applications might be much more complicated than simple CRUD-based resource updating projects, and therefore, Hanami allows you to validate parameters without coupling validations to persistence layers of your app. To validate params, use the params method defining the expected parameters schema inside. Having that, we can halt the request processing in case the parameters are not valid and return the errors instead. Now, when I will send the request with the empty name, I will get the 422 error response and none of the code after the validation call will be performed. A quick note here. Hanami uses dry validations and dry-schema under the hood as validation engine, and I will do a separate video about the details of how powerful those gems are. But for now, let's just focus on the action instead. It's cool to have validations in place. However, with this line, our handle method starts to be a bit fat. Validating parameters is something that can happen before every action in my system. And even without validations, there is often a need to do something before or after your action is called. For example, you might want to authenticate a user before each of your endpoints, or add some headers to the response. Such common scenarios can be achieved via before and after hooks. Let me extract my validation check to the before hook then. At the top of the action, I'm defining the hook and the method it should call. And then extract my validation check to the separate private method of the action. With this, my application behaves exactly the same, but it's much more clean inside. I can also chain the hooks together and prepend or append hooks to the existing list. Let me add a few random methods just to show you the mechanism that will extend the body of my response by my name. Before my action call, I will introduce myself. I add my first and last name to the body, then I want to prepend the title to it, and finally append the company information. I already prepared those methods, so let me paste them in. When I will run this, it will arrange my string components in the expected order. If you want some methods to be returned after the given action, use the after hooks in the same way. Finally, let's take a short look at the error handling. Hanami provides a neat way to handle exceptions in actions by using handleException method called on the action config object. Let's say I want to authorize my user before anything else happens. This will raise the authorization error and return to the browser as 500 server error, which is not the best experience to the user. Instead, we would like to handle this and return the readable error message to the client. Ideally, also with the correct HTTP status set. To do this, I will add the error handling configuration to the action, and then define the handleAuthorize method. This will properly handle my error and return the formatted message to the user exactly as you could expect. There is much more that I didn't cover here. hanami-actions are rich in features that are extremely useful in building scalable web applications. I only covered a few main functions, but if you want to know more, I strongly recommend to visit the documentation for easier overview. Working with actions is surprisingly easy, and I had a lot of fun trying them out. I especially enjoyed the fact how separated different concerns are, such as validations or error handling. However, that's all for today. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and if you want to see more content in this fashion, subscribe to my YouTube channel, newsletter, and follow me on Twitter. And if you know any great Ruby gem you would like me to cover, leave a comment with #suggestion. I will gladly cover it in the future episodes. I want to especially thank my recent sponsors, MVP Match, Jen Yang Njie, and DNS Simple, for supporting this project. I really appreciate it. By helping me creating this content, you are helping the open source developers and maintainers to create amazing software for you. And remember, if you want to support my work even without money involved, the best you can do is to like, share, and comment on my episodes and discussion threads. Help me add value to the open source community. As usual, here you can find 2 of my previous videos. Thank you all for watching, you are awesome, and have a nice rest of your day.